Okay, for this presentation we're going to look at the Daniels AF8 crimping tool. This particular crimping tool is used for pins and sockets, like these here. They come in a range of sizes, and therefore the tool must be able to cope with a different range of the pins and sockets. You'll find that generally the pins and sockets themselves are color coded. Mill standard pins and sockets typically have 3 color bands, whereas some Boeing pins and sockets have only 2 color bands or even a single color band. In some manufacturers there are no color bands whatsoever, as you can see from these pins and sockets here. However, we're now going to have a look more closely at the tool itself. As I said before, this is the Daniels AF8 Crimp Tool. There is a smaller version called the AF8M, but this is the one we're going to use today. Things we need to look at. This crimp tool, as we said, can be used to crimp a number of different size pins and sockets. To achieve that, we have a little locator turret. Now that locator turret will have a separate part number, as we can see on the top here, and it also has different options which relate to different colours. Now these colours don't relate to the pins themselves, but they relate to information that you will find in the standard wiring practices manual. How do we select the turret? Well, the part number will be detailed, as I said before, in the standard wiring practice manual for the pin or the socket that you need to use for your repair. So put this to one side. We'll look at the tool itself. There are several things on the tool we need to look at. The turret will fit here, and there are certain procedures you should follow before fitting the turret to the tool. There's a little gauge here, a rotary switch, and that allows me to select a different AWG size, American wire gauge size, depending on the size of the conductor we're going to do. It's relatively straightforward. So you just lift and turn to select the AWG size of the conductor that you are fitting into the pin or the socket. Sometimes it doesn't have the AWG size on here, but there will be a selector number. That selector number, typically between 1 and 8, will relate to a number again that you'll find detailed in the standard wiring practice manual for the correct setting to crimp that pin or socket. Now we look at the tool, we must fit the appropriate locating turret. When you fit the turret, it is most important that it is only fitted with the jaws of the tool fully open. Also, the actual locator, the color position locator, it should be popped fully out. To set it, you push it in. To release it, you press the release handle. If we don't have both the tool and the turret fully released, then you could damage the tool when we're fitting it, or the turret when you're fitting it to the tool. There are little alignment holes there, so that little alignment pin will fit with that little alignment pin on the tool itself. This again can be a little bit tricky, but you should find that it should slot in nice and gently. We then have an appropriate Allen key, which normally comes with a tool provided, and we secure the turret on to the tool itself, ensuring it's nice and tight. Once we've done that, we can select the appropriate color as detailed in the standard wiring practice for the pins or the sockets that we're going to use. Now the plug connection that we're going to use today is a socket, and it requires this turret, and it requires it to be set to the blue position. So I can change the colors by just rotating this round. When I get to the size or the position I want, it's a simple case of depressing it until you feel it click. Once it's clicked, I can turn the tool over. I then look at the pin and socket itself, and there are several key things we need to remember from the pin or the socket. The coloured band end is where we're going to carry out the crimp. And if we look at the crimp clearly, we see there's a little hole at this side. And now that is an inspection hole. Now when you fit the conductor into the barrel of the crimp itself, you must be able to see the conductor through the inspection hole. When we strip the cable back, we should strip it back again to ensure that the conductor butts up against the end of the crimp, and a small part of the conductor should be exposed at the back. And again, the standard wiring practices manual will detail approximately between 1/64th and 1/32nd of an inch. Now that is very, very difficult to gauge, but as long as you've got a little bit of conductor exposed at the part, that is probably going to be enough. We then get my stripped wire. Now once we've stripped it, it should slide nice and easily into the crimp tool itself. I'm then checking that I've got the correct amount of cable exposed. So in this case I'm fairly happy. If it was a little, or I didn't have enough cable exposed, I could strip the cable a little bit more, or if there was too much conductor exposed at that point, I could then trim a little bit off. Once I've done that, and I find this easiest, is to put the actual pin or socket in to the tool itself, and it should fit snugly. It fits nice and snugly, and then just gently close the jaws, but don't complete the crimp totally. That will hold the crimp in position quite nicely. Again, with all crimp tools, it will operate on a ratchet mechanism. Once you've started the ratchet, you have to complete the crimp to release it again. So there's no going back from this point. Now I've done that, I can place the wire into the crimp tool and complete the crimp correctly. Once I've done that, I can now inspect that my crimp has be completed satisfactorily, including checking the inspection hole that I can see the conductor, and check that the crimp has actually gone around the barrel in the correct place. This is where the importance of the locator comes in. If we were to use the wrong locator, or the wrong turret, or no turret at all, yes, we could still crimp the conductor onto the cable, but if the crimp is in its wrong place, there is a chance that when we fit the pin of the socket into the plug, the crimped part of the barrel may get stuck against the locking mechanism in the plug. If that happens, then you will find it is impossible to remove the actual pin from the plug. And the only option you then have then is to cut all the wires off and replace the plug completely. But now we've achieved this, we need to now fit this into the appropriate socket holder. Where's one we've already fitted? Obviously it's easier on the test bench. On the aircraft it would be a little bit more fiddly. What most people find is it helps just to physically insert the barrel slightly into the conductor before we complete the insertion. Now, to complete the insertion of the pin or the socket into the barrel, we will use an insert extract type tool. In this case, this tool came with a connector itself, and we use the coloured side, the blue side for insertion, and the white side to remove the pins. It's again a little fiddly sometimes. The way to do it is push the wire on top of the actual tool itself and then slide it along until the wire clips in place. That should then slide down on top of the crimp tool itself. Now we have to be a little bit careful here, and it should physically slide into the tool, and then you push it home until you feel it click. When you feel it click, you can then remove the insert extract tool and check it's located by giving a small tug on the wire to ensure it's located correctly. We've now correctly inserted the plug or the socket into the connector itself. Obviously, in this case, any unused connectors should be plugged up. Now, normally when you buy the connected tool, it will come with the number of sockets or pins that you require, and it also comes with little plastic plugs that you can insert to plug any unused. Okay, if there's only one, you can use the whole pin. Certain ones, they may send you a length of this plastic you can use for different ones. Once we've achieved that, we can put the back shell onto the plug, and we may have to fit some form of clamp to kill or hold the cable loom in place. Different clamps for different plugs. This is a straight plug, a straight clamp, but other types are available. Now for extraction, it is quite simply the reverse of the insertion. Now in this example, we're going to take another plug. This is quite an old plug, and we can see that this type of connector has a red insertion tool, but it's always the white part that is used for extraction. And here we can also see that any unused pins or sockets are plugged off to environmentally seal it. We can see some of the smaller cables have also got some heat shrink sleeving pushed over the top to ensure that it is correctly environmentally sealed. Now extraction is exactly the reverse of what we've done before. So in this case I need to use the white side. Again we slip the cable, again a little bit tricky sometimes, into the tool, slide it straight into the barrel until we hear it click once more. When we've done that, there's a little serrated edge on the tool. If I put a little bit of pressure on there, we should be able to extract the tool nice and easily to either replace it or attach a new connector. In certain cases with this tool, and it is fairly standard practice, especially with bowing, you may be required to use a electrical cable or wire that the conductor core is actually much smaller than the size or the diameter of the pin or socket which we're going to use it. Now with bowing, it is acceptable practice that if that is the case, what you may do is you strip the cable as normal, but prior to fitting it in the barrel, you fold the conductor back on itself. You can then fit it into the appropriate barrel and crimp it accordingly. And again, the same rules apply in terms of being able to see the conductor through the inspection window and have some of the conductor exposed at the back of the pin or socket. This is an acceptable practice on Boeing aircraft, but however, you must check the standard wire and practice manual to see if you can use this technique on your aircraft. And that completes the presentation on the Daniels AF8 tool.